Hey guys, what's up?
My name is Jeff
From the Midnight Garage. So I originally had planned to do a different video today, but then last Thursday I was driving on the highway and one of my brake lines burst because it was rusted. And that was obviously very dangerous, but that meant that I had to replace one of my brake lines from the front all the way to the back. And that means that I now have to bleed my brakes. So that's what this video is going to be about. Now, I am going to show you guys how to do this all by yourself, but if you happen to have two friends that can help you out, it's much easier. That way one person can press the brake pedal. The second person can keep the master brake cylinder reservoir topped up, because if you ever manage to empty out the reservoir, you can start all over again, and you don't want that. And the third person can do the most crucial thing, which is opening and closing the brake bleeding valve. But for this video, I'm going to do everything by myself, so that means that I have to get a little creative. Now, there are some tools around that basically help you out when you're doing this by yourself, but I've tried some of these tools before and I just really didn't like them. So for now, I'm just stuck to the old-fashioned method, which I prefer. Now, the first thing we need to check is on which side your steering wheel is. This car is right-hand drive. That means that I have to start with the brake that's furthest away from the master brake cylinder, which in this case is the left rear brake. If you have a left-hand drive car, that would mean that you have to start with the right rear brake. Since you're usually just going to make a mess, I just start by grabbing an oil pan, placing that underneath the brake so you can catch all the leaking brake fluid. So first up, you open your brake bleeding valve and then you start pumping. Now usually I just continue pumping until I hear a steady stream of brake fluid coming out of my brake bleeding valve. Now if you're with two people, you can usually put like a clear hose over the brake bleeding valve so you can see any bubbles coming out. But since you can't see the brake bleeding valve from this position anyways, it doesn't really matter in my eyes. It's also very important that you stop from time to time to check how full your master brake cylinder is. I usually stop every 20 times and check the fluid level and fill up accordingly. Why 20 brake presses? I don't know, you can pick a different number as well, it doesn't really matter as long as you don't push it, because otherwise you might just have to start all over and you don't want that. So far for the easy part, let's start with the hard part. First up, you need to close up your brake bleeding valve and then you need to press your brake pedal. Now, usually I press it between 5 to 10 times, it doesn't really matter how often you do that. But then you need to keep your brake pedal pressed while you go out in the back and open your brake bleeding valve once again. And how are you going to be at two places at the same time? So how did I solve this? Well, easy, with a skateboard. So I usually just move the seat all the way back. Then I grab a skateboard, put that in between the brake pedal and the seat, and then I move the seat all the way forward, and voila, as you can see, the brake pedal is pressed. Now obviously you don't need to use a skateboard, because I can imagine that you don't have one laying around, but you can use, for example, a piece of wood or the rod from your jack, or you know, anything that's long and hard. And oh god, where am I going with this? Now, with your brake pedal pressed, you can release your brake bleeding valve, and if you've done it right, you should see no bubbles coming out of it and just a steady stream of brake fluid. If you haven't done it right, you see some bubbles coming out, and then that means that you have to repeat the process. So, let's see. Well, I don't see any bubbles, so this side is good. And once you've done one wheel, you move on to the next wheel, and the next wheel, and the next wheel, all the way from the one that's furthest away from your master brake cylinder to the one that's closest to your master brake cylinder. And if you don't see any bubbles in any of them, you're done. Well, you can do everything a second time if you really want to be sure, but 9 out of 10 times that doesn't really need to happen. I myself, I'm just going to take the car for a small spin and see how the pedal feel is. So I'm testing the brakes out right now. They should feel pretty firm and not like a sponge, and yeah, they feel pretty firm. If they feel like a sponge, then that means that there's still some air trapped in the system and you would need to start all over again. But for me, this is definitely good enough. So yeah guys, that's it for today. I hope you guys liked it. Leave a like if you did, and hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this. And then hopefully we'll see you guys in the next one, which should actually be a summary of all the things that I've done with the Toyota Sierra so far. So for my closing shot, I'm just going to open my dihedral door for absolutely no reason, and then now we should fade out.